A ghost girl with no face floated off of the lake and up to my mother before turning and floating out and disappearing into the mist. Welcome to Paranormal Christian. Let's tell stories. It was in the summer of 1971. My mom was 14 years old, and she was attending church camp at the YMCA past Potosi, Missouri. It was not a YMCA at the time. At the time, it was simply called Sunnin Lake, and she was there for church camp with a lot of other young ladies. Now, the story that I'm getting ready to share with you, this is going to be perhaps the scariest story that I have to share from our personal library of stories. This is probably the one that's going to get the most traction, and it's going to have the most questions. This story is so multi-layered because it turns into about 4 or 5 stories that have intertwined, that have taken place over the span of about 40 years. You're not going to believe what I'm getting ready to tell you. And so get ready for this. My mom is at church camp. The cabin she was staying in, it had multiple rooms with outside entrances. There would be a door, and then down a little ways, there would be another door, and then another door. And people were bunking in these different rooms off of this cabin, which sat very near the lake, just a few car lengths from the lake, maybe 3 or 4 car lengths. One evening, they had concluded their evening worship services. It was nighttime, but it was not super late. The camp counselors were busy. They were somewhere doing whatever they were doing. All the young ladies went back and they congregated in one particular room. They were not ready to go to bed. They were not ready to split up. They all wanted to be in there together. And what else would 14-year-old girls do at church camp after worship service but hold a seance? They didn't take this very seriously. They considered this more of a party game. And some of you may be familiar with people sitting around in a circle, rocking back and forth and calling out the name Sally Walker. This was a popular seance, and they didn't consider it anything to be too concerned with. Many of you have stood and looked into a mirror in the dark in the bathroom and repeated various things depending on what area you live in and what stories you've heard. So all of the girls got in a circle on the floor. They held hands and they began to rock back and forth and to chant, Sally Walker, Sally Walker, over and over again. My mom decided they were taking it a bit too seriously. She didn't want any part of this. Now, she had to go a few doors down to get to her room, and she decided that's what she was going to do. And so she left the seance circle, she left the cabin, and she turned to walk a few doors down to her own room. When she got halfway between the room that she had left and her room that she was going to, she froze. She was paralyzed with fear as she noticed out of the corner of her eye something moving on the lake. She turns to look. And there on top of the water is a girl standing atop the water in a bluish, whitish, flowing gown, long black hair, and no face that she could make out. She said that the girl glided across the water closer and closer to my mom. And then she came onto the land. As she began to come up onto the land, my mom looking into this absence of a face, my mom turns to run as fast as she can to get to her room. As she goes to her room, she's looking over her shoulder and she sees that this thing turns and glides back out over the lake and vanishes into the mist. Now, there's a lot more to this story because this thing had a presence in our family that we did not realize until many years later. And so right now, I'm going to ask you to look up Ghost Girl Part 2 to find out how this visited our house in the early 80s.